It's always amusing to me teaching Romeo and Juliet that students can't quite get it through their head that in the beginning of the play, in Act 1, Romeo has a different love interest, and her name is not Juliet. Her name is Rosaline. Who the heck is Rosaline? Because the whole world knows Romeo and Juliet, okay? America, Latin America, Europe, obviously. Everyone knows the story. Given that, how can it be that Romeo had another girl he was apparently also in love with at the beginning of the play? So I'll tell you how this is usually interpreted, which is that Romeo is a frivolous boy, adolescent. He doesn't really understand what love is, and the fact that he goes from Rosaline to Juliet just shows that he's capricious and that it's all kind of arbitrary. But I don't quite read the play like that. And maybe it's my own life experience too, which is factoring in a little bit. Alan Bloom wrote that Romeo was, quote, in love with love. This kind of bolsters the idea that Romeo had this adolescent whimsy. So you can't take Romeo's notion of love too seriously in this view, which again is the conventional view. So here's a quote from literary critic Diane Ackman, which also shares that view of Romeo. Shakespeare wished to demonstrate in Romeo and Juliet how reckless and ephemeral the emotion of love is, especially in young people, and especially if one compares it with the considered love of older people. Okay, and I think there is some truth and some wisdom in that view that, adolescent love is pretty come and go. And certainly if you look at the character Friar Lawrence, he is kind of mocking Romeo throughout the play because he's like, wait, you're in love with Juliet now? I thought you were in love with Rosaline. It's funny because Friar Lawrence is wise. He kind of sees Romeo as being, as I said, capricious and whimsical and just not serious about love, although Friar Lawrence, for his own reasons, is interested in the concept of Romeo marrying Juliet, which doesn't end well, as we all know. Now, if we go back to Act 1, if we really want to dig into this relationship between Romeo and Rosaline, which is rather one-sided or unrequited, here's Romeo talking to Benvolio. When Benvolio asks what's wrong, Benvolio says, in love, and Romeo says, out. Benvolio, of love? Romeo, out of her favor, where I am in love. And that's a reference to Rosaline. And when Romeo says out of her favor where I'm in love, that is like the definition of unrequited love. What guy hasn't been through it? The best thing you can do is just move on. And so that's what Romeo does when he meets Juliet. He is not going to mention Rosaline again, except to the extent that his friends keep bringing up Rosaline, Benvolio and Mercutio, because they're just under the impression that why is Romeo sad? Why is Romeo in a bad mood? Because he's pining for Rosaline. That's their mistaken assumption. Understandably, they would think that, because you don't typically go from loving one girl to another so quickly. So just prior to the famous balcony scene, Mercutio is making fun of Romeo for what he believes to be Romeo's continuing obsession with Rosaline. And so this is from Act 2. I conjure thee by Rosaline's bright eyes, by her high forehead and her scarlet lip. So that's Act 2. This is belief, this assumption that Romeo is still harping on Rosaline by his friend Mercutio. Starts out in Act 1, continues to Act 2. Romeo's love for Juliet is more or less a mystery to his friends and family until it's kind of too late. But Friar Lawrence is quite censorious towards Romeo for his changing passions. However, Friar Lawrence is happy when he hears that Romeo has moved on from Rosaline. And he says, that's good, my son. He encourages Romeo. And then when Romeo explains that, no, like, I'm in love with someone else now. I'm in love with Juliet. Friar Lawrence says, Holy St. Francis, what a change is here. Is Rosaline that thou didst love so dear, so soon forsaken? Young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes. Or you can say it lies in their pants, I think is what he's really trying to say. So Romeo responds to Friar Lawrence, I pray thee, chide not. She whom I love doth grace for grace and love for love allow. The other did not so. And I think that pretty much sums it up. Romeo very reasonably says that Rosaline did not return my love. It was unrequited. That's not a healthy thing to pursue. But Juliet, as we all know, is super interested in Romeo. So I believe that it's quite healthy that Romeo moves on from Rosaline and on to Juliet. Although it tends to make him look like a bit of a flake, it's like, hey, that's life. Sometimes you have to just put it out there, you know? This whole Rosaline thing was a mistake. Everyone knows about it, and I guess he told everybody, and that makes him look silly. But he has to follow his heart, as we all should. And so, you know, the fact that Romeo goes from Rosaline to Juliet, I think, yeah, I can understand the interpretation that makes him look like a whimsical adolescent. However, it's also pretty logical and pretty psychologically healthy for Romeo to do so. And maybe that's what Shakespeare was thinking too. I like to think I'm on the same headspace as Shakespeare. No, just kidding. But I am in the headspace of Michael McCara. That's me. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you liked it. And most importantly, please do subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it.